After selling 33 million copies of Spider-Man 2018 on PS4, while also winning a ton of awards and accolades, Sony told Insomniac congratulations on the success. Thanks for making us a ton of money. Now do it again, please. Insomniac said, sure Sony, we'll get right to it. So they took the next logical step, giving Miles Morales his own game, especially because he's never had one. Well, at least one like theirs. So in 2020, we got is the new launch title for the new Sony console, the PS5. So the question is now, how does this game stack up against Spider-Man 2018? Is there enough here to justify it being its own game? Or is it just overglorified DLC? Well, let's find out.
What if we hang out tomorrow? Just the two of us.
You're not too busy?
It's winter break. I can put off homework for at least another week.
Okay, I'll text you.
It's a date. I mean, not a date. A friend date.
Still as smooth as the last time I saw you.
The story starts off with Miles getting a text from Peter about a convoy leaving early. Miles meets up with Peter on top of this building. They have a chat about how Peter's able to drink coffee upside down. Then they take off to follow the convoy. While following the convoy, everything that can go wrong does. The container that was being moved via helicopter falls into the street. This leads to Rhino breaking out along with some low-level criminals. This leads to an awesome opening sequence with Miles riding on Rhino's back while bulldozing through a mall, with countless people in it because it's Christmas Eve. Peter steers Rhino into a Roxxon power plant, but that doesn't slow him down at all. While Miles is trying to help the cops with some of the lower level crooks, Peter gets murked by Rhino. This is when Miles has to step up to defeat him. During the fight with Rhino, Miles gets a new ability to control electricity, which he calls Venom. He uses that to defeat Rhino on his own. After defeating Rhino, this guy named Simon Krieger shows up. He thanks Miles for stopping Rhino while low-key shitting on Peter. Simon tells them that he and his security will hold on to Rhino until the police arrive, so they leave. While on a rooftop eating some pizza, Peter tells Miles that he's leaving New York for a couple of weeks. Miles doesn't think he's ready to work alone, but Peter disagrees. This is when Peter has Miles take this totally made up oath he made up on the spot. He also gives Miles a gift before he leaves. Miles calls his best friend Genki to tell him Peter gave him something, that he's on his way to meet him. It turns out to be a new suit, so they both freak out. After completing a combat simulation, Miles gets a call from Genki. Genki tells him he saw some people breaking into Roxxon Plaza. When Miles gets there, we find out where Roxxon is and what they do. They are building these huge energy reactors that can give places energy for 500 years. This is when Miles investigates the break-in. After snooping around, he gets attacked by this group called Underground. Miles takes them down. This is also when Roxxon security shows up, so Miles leaves. When Miles gets home to have Christmas Eve dinner with his mom and Genki, a special guest shows up. A girl named Finn who was a childhood friend of Miles. While eating dinner, Miles' mom asks Finn about her brother Rick who works at Roxxon. She avoids the question by talking about the mom's campaign against Roxxon. While Miles and Finn are washing dishes, Miles tries to get Finn to open up about what's on her mind. She tells him not tonight, but another time, so they set a date to hang out again. The next morning, Miles helps his uncle with this problem at the subway station he works at. It turns out the Underground is sabotaging trains and is trying to blow them up, but Miles stops them. After taking care of that, Aaron tells Miles he knows he's Spider-Man, that he recognized him by the way he was moving when he saw him on TV one day. Miles tells him not to tell his mom, and Aaron agrees not to. While at his mom's campaign rally against Roxxon, the Underground attacks. After taking down some of the Underground, there's a huge explosion off in the distance. This leads Miles to go to the breakaway bridge to investigate. When he gets there, Roxxon and the Underground are about to go at it. He tries to de-escalate the situation, but to no avail because the Tinkerer shows up, the leader of the Underground. The Tinkerer kicks Miles out of the way to get what they came for, this stuff called New Form. It's what powers Roxxon energy reactors. While trying to get the New Form back from the Tinkerer, this is when we find out Finn is the Tinkerer. She hits Miles into the truck that is carrying the New Form. The New Form in the truck has a reaction to his venom powers, causing a huge explosion on the bridge. causing the bridge to start collapsing in multiple areas. This is when we get our signature Spider-Man pulling two things together with webs while he's in the middle. After doing all of that and saving multiple lives, the remaining Roxxon troops are ready to gun Miles down. This is when he gets his second new ability, camouflage. This gives him the ability to turn invisible. When he discovers this, he gets the fuck out of there. The next day, Miles goes to Finn's family's repair shop. It's been closed, so Miles decides to go in and investigate. This is when we find out Finn's motives for why she's doing what she's doing. It turns out that the new form makes people sick, but Simon doesn't give a fuck. Rick was the leader of the project. We also find out that Finn and Rick tried to shut it all down, but were not successful. In the process, Simon basically Dr. Manhattan's Rick. Miles goes to his uncle for advice. Aaron tells him to lie to Finn to get him into the underground so he can do some more investigating on where she took the canister of new form. Miles does this, convincing Finn to let him join the underground. While at their HQ, Miles finds out where they're keeping that canister of new form. When he gets it, the Tinkerer shows up taking it away from him. This leads into a very destructive chase throughout the city. When Finn has Miles up against the ropes, he reveals himself as Spider-Man. This leaves Finn shocked beyond all belief. She gives Miles the slip when he gets distracted by some cops. Miles goes sees his uncle to help clear his mind about Finn. After having a little bonding moment, Miles gets in contact with Finn. They decide to meet at this church. They went to this church to see a concert when they was kids. While they are hashing things out, Miles' spidey sense starts going crazy. Rhino comes out of nowhere like Randy Orton, capturing both of them. When Miles wakes up, Simon is there. He basically tells Miles he's going to turn him into a test subject because he smells bioengineering money. Also to torture him to get Finn to tell him where the new form she took is. After breaking free from the restraints, Finn and Miles escape. While escaping, Miles sees his uncle with Simon. This is when he puts two and two together that his uncle sold him out. Right before they're able to escape, Rhino shows up. After being beaten, Rhino starts talking shit to Finn about her brother. While that's happening, Miles finds out that Finn's plan to destroy the reactor will destroy Harlem. Finn almost kills Rhino, but Miles stops her. This pisses her off even more, so she beats the shit out of him. When Miles finally makes it home, severely injured, he tells his mom he's Spider-Man. When somewhat recovered, Miles makes his final decision to stop Finn by any means. So he sets out to find her. While looking for her, his uncle stops him. He tries to tell Miles that he doesn't want to lose another family member. That the deal with Simon was for him to get Finn, not Miles. Miles doesn't care and fights his uncle so he won't stop him again. Miles finds Finn. He tries to talk some sense into her, but of course she doesn't listen. Finn was able to get to the reactor before Miles was able to stop her. They get into this big battle at the top of Roxxon Plaza that destroys most of the building. During all of this, Harlem is being destroyed at a rapid pace. When seeing the amount of destruction the reactor has caused, Finn finally has a change of heart. Miles tells her he can stop this. He does by absorbing all the electricity from the reactor. This makes him a ticking EMP of sorts. Way too beat up and full of electricity to move, Finn picks him up and runs up Roxxon Plaza, propelling them into the sky. She tells him it's okay to let go, essentially sacrificing herself. This leads to a huge electric explosion. After falling back down to the ground, a few people see Miles without his mask, but vows not to say anything. Miles swings away before any news reporters are able to get a glimpse. We cut to a couple weeks later to see a fully healed Miles walking the streets. He eventually meets up with Peter, who's back from vacation essentially. He shows off his new suit and that he can also drink coffee upside down. Miles asks Peter, does it get any easier? Peter says, kinda, but not really. This is when we hear police sirens blaring. They look at each other, bump fists and say game time, and start web swinging to go stop some crimes. We're not done just yet though, we have an after credit scene. From the perspective of Harry and Avad, Norman tells Dr. Connors it's time to let him out. Connor tries to tell him otherwise but does it anyway. Then the screen cuts to black, setting up for the sequel. So here's my thoughts on the story. It's okay. The problem is that we literally just saw something similar to this in Spider-Man 2018. Except it was with Otto, someone Peter truly respected instead of a childhood friend. Not only that, this type of story has been done a million times now. Two friends seeing differently on how judgment should be served. It's just an overly played out narrative for a story. To be honest with you, the best part was Simon Krieger, who unfortunately is not in the game that much, which is a shame. In some weird alternate timeline, I can see Brendan Fraser playing this guy, especially a young Brendan Fraser would be perfect. The only reason why I'm being relatively tough on this is because they had a better story, that being Miles' original run in the Ultimate Comic series. I will always scream from the rooftops on how good that story was. I talked about it in my Spider-Man 2018 review, so I won't rehash it here, but I will say this. Please, please, please go and read it if you never have. Once you see how fantastic that story is, you will understand why I love it so much. Not only that, but why someone needs to adapt the fucking thing already.
This Spider-Man is broken. I would like to exchange for new one. This one will do.
Miles, get out of here. Bro. Back the hell?
So when it comes to visuals, it looks the exact same as Spider-Man 2018. So in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing really to go over. I will say Miles' edge up is extra crispy, so there's that. The suits are as beautiful as ever, even though there aren't that many. That's not a knock against this game, by the way. I'm just simply pointing that out. There are a total of 20 suits to unlock. There are 5 that I absolutely love, so let's break them down. The first one being the Crimson Cowl suit. This one is fucking badass and menacing. To be honest with you, it's the hood that brings it home for me. I love how majority of the suit is red, with the black being used sparingly. It really helps put emphasis on the areas that it is used, like his mask or how it runs down his shoulders to his arms and hands. It's just a sharp and badass look. The second one is the 2099 suit. This one is like the Crimson suit in principle. Once again, the hood on this one is just badass. This one is majority black with red, white, and blue accents, with the 2099 spider symbol taking up the whole torso but also blending in with the overall design. How the spider symbol on the back stretches out all the way to his hands and legs. To top it all off, his eyes glow with like this smoke coming out of them, or whatever you want to call it. Absolute fire. The third is the tracksuit. I mean, come on, look at this thing. This suit did not have to go this hard. The white is just too much to handle in a good way, with the spider symbols being the borders for the black on the upper body, the black slowly tapering away into his hands, or the front and the back spider symbol connecting to make the web pattern on his head. It's outright ridiculous. The fourth one is the winter suit. This one is nothing but Miles in the classic suit, but with a scarf, earmuffs, and a red beanie. The reason behind this one is why I love it so much. So basically throughout the story, you see this girl named Haley. She's deaf, but is one hell of an artist. When Miles saves her and a bunch of civilians from some thugs that were shooting up the place, she gives him that as her token of appreciation for saving everyone. This also sets up the fact that they might get together in the future because she has a crush on Spider-Man. It seems like the feelings is mutual with Miles. I fully ship this, and I don't care what anyone says. It's just a wholesome and cute interaction. Last but certainly not least is none other than the classic suit. This bad motherfucker right here is a definitive Miles suit for me. I love how it's majority black with a red accent. That being the web pattern that blends into a V shape that starts at his torso, then works his way around the shoulders onto his back to blend in with the spider symbol. The only other red in the suit is on his fingers, which is so clean. This is the pure definition of simple yet complex in my eyes. It's honestly going to be hard for another suit to ever top it. When it comes to everything else, it's the exact same for the most part as Spider-Man 2018, so there's no point of overly detailing everything. The suit unlocks and upgrades are acquired the same way with just some slight tweaks. The skill tree works the same way, just change to suit Miles' powers. Except Miles doesn't have as many gadgets as Peter because of his Venom powers, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's go over the gadgets first because there's only 4 of them. First, we have the web shooters. You know what they do. Next is the holo drone. This one sends out hologram dudes to help you in combat. Second to last is the remote mines. These can be attached to electric panels or enemies, When detonated, it creates an electric explosion. This by far is the best gadget. Last is the gravity well. What it does is in the name. It sucks enemies into a singular point. This is the second best one. When it comes to Miles' Venom powers, he has 8, but I'm only going to go over the ones that I use the most. The first one being Venom Punch. This one is a punch laced with Miles' Venom powers that does a lot of damage. The last one is Venom Smash. With this one, Miles jumps in the air to immediately slam back into the ground, releasing an AoE of electricity. This one is good for when you're surrounded by enemies. Before I wrap this up, I want to say that the damage output on Miles is pretty bad. That or the enemies are just way too spongy. I really don't know. I wasn't even playing on hard. I was playing on normal. I don't know if this was their way of showing how green Miles was to fighting crime, but I don't like it. Especially because the enemies are on the exact opposite side of the spectrum. They will fuck you up with the quickness. That's all I got for gameplay. Let's wrap this up.
Pete, does this job ever get easier?
Some of it, yeah. Some things never get easier, though.
Roxxon did this uptown because they saw us as disposable. Me, Rick, Finn, all of Harlem. I think part of our job is making sure they can't get away with it.
We'll add it to the Spider-Man oath. Go time?
Go time.
So even though I didn't love everything about this game, it still tops all other Spider-Man games except for 2018. That's still the king until Spider-Man 2 2023 drops. This game was a good stopgap / placeholder in the lead up to Spider-Man 2 2023. It does just enough to make it feel like its own game, not some overglorified DLC. If you haven't played it, try it out.